You know, the NHL by the 62-63 season was a rough place. There was a lot of heavy rivalries between the original six. We were a few years away from expansion, and this campaign was very newsworthy for unforeseen physical events. We're going to talk about the season and Toronto's road to the Cup that year. A lot of people felt Detroit had the team to win it because Gordie Howe was MVP, but it didn't play out. Now, the 62-63 NHL season was the 46th campaign for the association. 6 teams, each played 70 games, and Toronto won their second cup in a row as it defeated the Red Wings 4-1. Now, the big news, of course, of the season was some diversionary news that hit the sports pages today of the annual All-Star game, when it was reported that Toronto had sold Frank Mahovlich to Chicago for $1 million, and James D. Norris produced a check for the amount. On the advice of Connie Smythe, Leafs GM and head coach Punch Imlach declined the deal, saying that $1 million does not score goals, and Mahovlich would remain a Maple Leaf. Around this time, Imlach was basically playing mind games, no pun intended, with Frank, who might have been suffering from aspects of mental illness at the time, severely depressed, and eventually led to his departure from Toronto to Detroit and eventually to Montreal. Now, a serious incident also took place on October 23rd between the Habs and Chicago Blackhawks. A vicious stick-swinging duel took place between the very cerebral and quiet Gilles Tremblay and Reggie Fleming that was said to be the worst since the Bernie Geoffrion-Ron Murphy fight in '53. Both players received match penalties and $100 fines. Tremblay emerged with a bad cut in his head that required many stitches. Montreal coach Tove Blake had some caustic remarks for Fleming when he was leaving the ice, which almost resulted in another fight. The Canes and Blackhawks then skated to a 4-4 tie. President Clarence Campbell suspended both Tremblay and Fleming for 3 games. Now, Glenn Hall's consecutive game streak also came to an end that year on November 8th when he suffered a pinched nerve in his back and was relieved by Dennis DeJordy in the first period of a game in which Hall's Blackhawks tied Boston 3-3. DeJordy played well in the next game as the Blackhawks bet the Habs 3-1, and the streak was over. Now, Chicago was improving and moved into a first-place tie with Detroit when he blanked Boston 5-0 on November 29th. Stan Mikita scored 2 goals and Bobby Hull had 1. The same night, the Rangers shut out the Red Wings 5-0 as Gump Worsley played a fine game. Worsley was unlucky in his next game, however, as Chicago bet the Rangers 5-1, and Worsley badly injured his shoulder and has been replaced by Marcel Pelletier. Gump went to the hospital where he would have heavy shoulder traction for 10 days. Now, Andy Hebberton also had the hat-trick on December 16th as the Rangers bet Detroit 5-2 at MSG. The game, unfortunately, was spoiled by a brawl, the chief participants being Dave Ballon, Bill Gadsby, Doug Barkley, and goalie Terry Sawchuk. All were fined. Now, another key game was Andy Bathgate, who got a pair of goals when the Rangers tied Montreal 2-2 at the Forum on January 5th. This was the 10th consecutive game in which he scored. The streak was terminated when Jacques Plante blanked the Rangers 6-0 in New York. Now, Jean Beliveau also scored his 300th NHL goal on January 26 when the Rangers bet the Habs 4-2 at the Forum. Goals had not come very fast this year, and he hinted that this might be his last season. The writers did not take him seriously, however. The next night, the Canadiens bet the Blackhawks 3-1 at Chicago Stadium, and Beliveau had a spectacular goal, giving a beautiful exhibition of stick handling. Now, Bernie Geoffrion and Donnie Marshall were back on January 31st, but the Canadiens lost 6-3 to Toronto at the Forum. Coach Tove Blake was not pleased with officiating and was quoted in the French paper that referee Eddie Powers handled the game as if he had bet on the outcome. This attracted the attention of NHL President Clarence Campbell, who said the matter would be investigated. Later, Blake was fined $200 by Campbell. Powers considered the fine inadequate and submitted his resignation as a referee. He cited Red Story when Campbell would not support decisions he made. Powers then sued Blake for libel. Now, Bobby Hull also had a big game on February 17th where Chicago bet Boston 3-1 when he had a hat trick. Montreal also bet Detroit 6-1 that night, and Howie Young of the Rangers established a penalty record when he high-sticked a Canadiens player and then commenced a tantrum, withdrew him a minor, a major, a misconduct, and a game misconduct, totaling 27 minutes. His season total at the time reached 208 minutes in penalties, and Campbell then tacked on a 3-game suspension. Now, in the playoff race, Detroit ousted the Rangers from the playoffs on March 3rd with a 3-2 win. Now, Bernie Geoffrion was also in trouble for an incident during a game on March 5th, in which Montreal bet Detroit 4-3. Referee Vern Buffy had given Jacques Plante a penalty for slashing Howie Young, and then a bench penalty when the Canadiens protested. Geoffrion threw his stick at Buffy and his gloves as well. Geoffrion was eventually given a match penalty, and President Clarence Campbell assessed Geoffrion a 5-game suspension. Now, the career of Canadiens Lou Fontinato was big on the news that year as well, as it came to a tragic end on March 9th when he tried to check Vic Hadfield and instead was thrown headlong into the boards by the Ranger player. Fontinato lay motionless on the ice for some time before carried off the ice on a stretcher and had taken to the Montreal General Hospital, where the diagnosis was a broken neck, a crushed cervical vertebrae. He gradually recovered from his paralyzed condition, but he would not play hockey again. Jacques Laperriere eventually replaced Fontinato on the Canadiens' defense. Now, it was quite a race for the playoff positions, as 5 points separated fourth and first. Gordie Howe led the Red Wings in NHL and won his 6th and last Art Ross Trophy and Hart Trophy. Now, Toronto finished first overall, 35-23-12 with 82 points. Chicago second, 32-21-17 with 81 points. Montreal led the league in scoring with 225 goals with a 28-19-23 record, plus 42 differential, 79 points. Red Wings 32-25-13 with 77 points. Rangers 22-36-12 with 56 points. And of course the Bruins, which were the laughingstock of the league at the time, 14-39-17, a minus 83 goals for and against with 45 points. Now in the playoffs, Toronto knocked off Montreal in 5 games, while Chicago lost to Detroit in 4 games. Toronto then went on to win the Stanley Cup 4-1. Now, the series between Toronto and Montreal, Toronto won the first 3 games by 3-1, 3-2, and 2-0. Montreal won Game 4-4 to extend it to 5 games, and then Toronto went on to a 5-0 shutout in the deciding Game 5. Now, in Chicago and Detroit, Chicago led the series 2-0 with 5-4 and 5-2 victories before Detroit won 4 games straight, 4-2, 4-1, 4-2, and 7-4. Now in the finals, a very, very dramatic result. Toronto won the first 2 games at home by 4-2 scores, lost Game 3, 3-2 in Detroit, and won 4-2 on the road in Game 4, and won 3-1 at home in a key Game 5. So 8-2 for Toronto in the playoffs. A tremendous result. So that year, Prince of Wales Trophy winner, Toronto. Art Ross Trophy winner, Gordie Howe. Calder rookie went to Kent Douglas. Hart went to Gordie Howe. James Norris went to Pierre Pilote. Lady Byng for excellence in sportsmanship, Dave Keon. Of course, the Vezina with Glenn Hall. The All-Star teams included Glenn Hall, Pierre Pilote, Carl Brewer, Stan Mikita, Gordie Howe, and Frank Mahovich on the first team, with Sawchuck, Timmy Horton, Moose Vasco, Al Richard, Andy Bathgate, and Bobby Hull on the second team. Now, Howe led the season with 86 points, including 38 goals. Bathgate was a close second with 81 points, including 35 goals. Stanley Mikita, 31 goals, 76 points. Frank Mahovich with 36 goals, 73 points. Henri Richard, 73 points. Jean Beliveau, in kind of a down year, 67 points in 69 games. The great Johnny Busick on a very bad Boston team, 66 points in 69 games. Alex Delvecchio, 20 goals, 64 points. Then Bobby Hull, 31, 62. And a very underrated Murray Oliver ended up second place in Boston scoring with 62 points. Now, leader in goals against average, Jacques Plante with a 2.49, Don Simmons of Toronto with a 2.5, then Glenn Hall at 2.52, Terry Sawchuk with a 2.52. Johnny Bauer with a 2.6. Hank Bassett of the Red Wings 3.25. Gump Worsley for the Rangers 22, 34, and 10 with a 3.27. And Bob Perreault and Eddie Johnson sharing duties in Boston. And Johnson had the worst average in the league with a 4.02. Now Glenn Hall led all players with 30 victories, thus the Vezina. Now coaches that season included Boston Bruins Bill Schmidt, Chicago Blackhawks Rudy Pilius, Detroit Sid Abel, Montreal Toe Blake, the Rangers Red Sullivan, and of course Toronto Punch Imlach. And players that had their NHL debuts that year included Eddie Johnson, Paul Henderson, Claude LaRose, the original, Jacques Laperriere, Terry Harper, Jim Nielsen, and Ken Douglas. And last games that year, Bob Turner, Jack Evans, Vic Stasiak, and of course Luke Fontanato in that big injury. So a very, very interesting campaign. We're seeing less media coverage in the States, but soon, of course, with expansion, you're seeing more and more overall media coverage. But we thought that this could be Detroit's breakout year to get back to the Stanley Cup championship after dominating much of the 50s, but Toronto was a very diverse defensive team. Now, for the modern day Toronto fans, you have no indication how good Toronto was back in the day. This Toronto team could play offense or defense, again, balance of veterans and young players, and there was always someone coming up. And I can tell you one thing, ladies and gentlemen. Paul Henderson was a big part to that part of the NHL when he came in. He broke in with Detroit, but if Paul Henderson would have broken with Toronto, easily they could have won 5 straight, because Toronto was one player away to being the most dominant franchise in the NHL, and you would finish near the top of the standings every season. But 62, 63, 64, 67, that is the key dynasty of the 1960s, because Montreal won because of expansion. They won against the weak sisters of what I call the western side. But Toronto, again, very dominant team. And you see the disgrace Toronto Maple Leafs that is out now. This is not, when I say disgraceful Toronto Maple Leafs, I'm talking the modern era. To see how far they were the team of the 40s. We all know that. He won, with the Sillaps senior years. But anyway, if you want to be a Toronto fan, be a Toronto fan in the 1940s and 60s, not this joke team that's out now who thinks the regular season means the playoffs or the Stanley Cup. Thanks for listening. Bye.